It is good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
We already had like 30 minutes of a podcast before this, but appreciate you coming in, man. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. A lot of fun, dude. That yeah, we were talking about this beforehand, but that show we did on Tuesday night at the Block was interesting.
It was so weird. It was a lot of fun. I always get weirded out when I invite friends because most of my friends are here in Albuquerque. So I had a buddy come through, and I was like, it usually goes a little better than that, to be honest with you. But I had a good time. It was a fun show, but it was like, yeah, all my jokes bombed, and then anything I said that was kind of funny off the fly, they were like loving it. I was like, all right, I don't know. Couldn't quite figure them out, but
Dude,
it was fun.
I have a friend. He's in town right now for a little bit, but he's about to. I'm not gonna say his name. Yeah, he's about to deploy, and he's been on this podcast before, and he's about to deploy with the Navy, and he's been to a couple of my shows, and every show he goes to, I eat a dick. Because like I'll show him the footage of ones I'm not. I'm like, dude, I did really well. Look at this. He's like, oh, that's cool. Then he shows up, and I just die. And he's like, what the fuck was that? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't know. And yeah, just the same thing here, man. Like, I'm not saying my material is like fucking top notch, but I know it does well. Like, I know it's okay.
Yeah.
It's perfectly down the middle to slightly above average for somebody who's a year and a half into stand-up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, but yeah, just Tuesday night, it's like my material would get like, or just nothing. And then I start riffing about Kanye because some dude brought it up, and it's just like, it's like, what?
Yeah.
You're laughing at that? Okay, all right, whatever, man, whatever. Well, also, it certainly didn't help that the first two comedians, especially the first one, had written material only that he was, and I'll give him this, very confident in his written material. Very confident in his written material.
Say,
but my
Yeah.
God.
He was like,
Don't open. Listen, I'm not the arbiter of what's funny. I am not the greatest comedian in the world. I'm just a guy. In my opinion, you probably, when you are the first person, because yeah, AJ hosted and he did like 8 minutes up front. Okay. But when you're the first like comic on the lineup, and you only have 5 minutes, A, don't run the light. Don't run the fucking light.
that's like, yeah.
That's annoying.
Yeah.
A, but B, even if you're gonna run the light, if you only have like 4 jokes in your repertoire, maybe don't have one of them open with "I lost my virginity to a minor."
That was, I was like, I don't think the show is going to carry on. I think let's just call it a night. After like the first 5 words of the set, I was like, let's just not do this at this point. Like that was,
Well, because it's like, because he's done a couple of the open mics that we've done at Safe House.
yeah.
And he has some good material. Like he actually, like because he's very, and I told him this a couple weeks ago. I was like, you're bordering on an impression or an imitation of Anthony Jeselnik.
Yeah, I could see that.
And I told him, I was like, if you're going to set yourself up like that, you have to have the best written joke.
Yeah.
Because his whole thing is either normal thing with an ugly misdirect, or an ugly thing with an even meaner misdirect that still manages to be funny.
Yeah.
He's also been doing this for 20 years.
No.
No. Jeselnik.
Okay, I thought you were talking about like,
No,
this guy was like,
no.
there's no way that comic's been doing it 20 years.
No, yeah. No, Jeselnik's been doing it for like 20 years. You're 3 weeks in. Mm-hmm. Personally, I didn't think he should be on a show, but that would make me a hypocrite because I did a show a month into me doing comedy.
Dude, congrats to you, man. I didn't do a show. I mean, I didn't do a show for my first probably 9 months. I was just like open mics.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was, I'm glad I didn't do that. Because I wouldn't have opened with "I lost my virginity to a minor."
Yeah, well, because he had a good transgender joke that I liked a lot, like the disabilities one.
Oh man,
I liked that one, but the rest of it was just. Ugh.
I think I disassociated for a while. It's like I'm up after this.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the amazing people over at Chopped Chili. Guys, this is personally my favorite chili brand here in the state of New Mexico, and you can find them online at choppedchilico.com. You can also find them all across the state of New Mexico at Sprouts, Albertsons, Smith's, and a bunch of other stores in Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Las Cruces. I believe they're even down in El Paso now. They sell red and green chili, of course. My personal favorite is this blend of red and green, and they also sell online frozen bags of green chili. So again, go to choppedchilico.com to get yourself some amazing chili today. Now back to the podcast.
How am I going to follow this guy?
I will say this. One of the saddest part of my night was when I made a Blue Mountain Steak joke. And it's not that it wasn't even, I'm not saying it was very funny, but the fact that like nobody got the reference in the crowd.
Yeah.
I was like, none of you watch Spike TV? You have a backwards hat and a fucking feisty mustache. Like, and you're dating clearly an ex-cheerleader. You never watched Blue Mountain State. Fuck you, Thad Castle. Like, come on, I didn't have a mustache, but still. Like, fuck you, man. I know you saw that show, but I didn't want to be a fucking asshole.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sometimes, I don't know, I never watched Blue Mountain State, but sometimes those deep cut jokes.
You've never seen Blue Mountain State?
I haven't.
With that mustache, you've never seen Blue Mountain State.
Dude, I don't know why I look like this. I'm like a barista, and I am super liberal, and I'm Mexican. Everyone thinks I'm like a right-wing Christian. Like someone one time after a show, actually I have two funny stories about it. One time after a show.
That is a very icy mustache.
Yeah, someone told
me,
someone was like, I didn't know you were Mexican. You look like you hunt Mexicans. I was what the fuck does that mean?
I would use that in my set.
Dude, I've tried. It's a little too it's a little too real for people right now. But on Tuesday, I was walking out. Me and AJ were just kicking it, talking, and this older guy who was drunk off his ass came up to me, and he was like, I didn't know you were Mexican. You look like a fucking Jew. And then he just left. I had no idea how to react. I was like, dude, Kanye is still on the loose. You can't be saying stuff like that. I was also so confused because I was like, I've never been discriminated against for the wrong race. This is so weird. Like,
see, and there is a joke somewhere in that. And I feel like somebody's already done it where it's like the word Jew is all like when you say it, it's like it sounds like a slur, but it's not.
It's Norm Macdonald. He does a great bit.
Oh, does he?
Yeah,
okay.
He's got this great bit about it. He's like, it's weird. It's Jewish if you put an A before it, or it's racist if you put an A before it. It's not racist if you don't like, oh yeah, you know, they're Jewish. And then the difference is, oh yeah, he's a Jew. You're like, oh my gosh.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I love.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
No, it was so weird, but it was such a weird moment. I mean, everyone standing there was like, I don't know what to fucking do about that. Like, thanks for coming out. I think I said shalom as he left or something. I don't know. It was crazy, man.
Well, because when I did Casadas last year, I did pretty well. My second show on Friday night was meh, but like my first show and then the two shows on Saturday was pretty good. And I was like, the show had ended and people were starting to leave. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go find my chick. And I left and I just made a mistake. And I like walked onto the stage and immediately off. And so I'm like right with the crowd as they're leaving. And this lady goes, hey, come here. Older lady, right? Clearly very drunk. Yeah. But she seemed like an old grandma. Like she had to have been like north of 75. You know what I mean? And I didn't realize this about Caroline Rhea, but because of her show, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, she has an older crowd and she has a very gay crowd. Because I never put two and two together that like Sabrina the Teenage Witch had two aunts. Oh yeah, that's like a gay thing. Okay. That makes sense to me. And the feature had made that known to me. Like, yeah, that's why like, her crowds are interesting because like in some cities will be whatever, like normal, like just like a good not homogenization, but a good like diversity of people, like a normal show.
Yeah.
But then other shows like this, you'll just have like a fucking older lesbian crowd, and they mostly loved me. But this lady calls me over, and I go and I sit down, and she goes to shake my hand. and I go and shake her hand, and as I like try to pull away, she like holds on to me, and I'm like, okay, and she goes, you need to know what crowd you're in. We're a very liberal city. And I'm like, oh, yes, ma'am, I understand. But thank you so much for coming out. And she like moves from like the thick of your hand to my fingers and starts like, I don't know where she got the strength of a 20-year-old dude, but she's like really going. And she goes, yeah, we're a very, very liberal city. And I'm like, yes, ma'am, but I'm glad you had a good time. And she goes, wow, are you from New Mexico? And I'm like, yes, ma'am, I am. Born and raised. She goes, where? I'm like, in Albuquerque, ma'am. What part of Albuquerque? And she's like continuing to like strangle my finger. And her friend is behind her going like, hey, we got to go. Let him go. Yeah. And by the end of it, I was like, hey, ma'am, I got to go find my girlfriend. And her friend goes, let him go. I'm like, Jesus Christ,
I think I'm about to get murdered by this older lady.
But yeah, dude, it's the shit. And I've had some other like weird. I've never been called a Jew, but
it was so weird. It was such a weird thing. And what's crazy is someone else had told me that recently, but kind of in funny passing. It was another comic, and I was like, I don't know what I did. Like I cut my hair recently, but apparently with that cut, everyone's like, all right. Now we're racist against you for a new reason. Like,
L'chaim, brother.
Yeah, exactly. It was so weird. It was so weird. But yeah, man, I've had a few weird interactions with hecklers.
Yeah, bring that mic closer a little bit to you.
Like this?
Yeah,
right
yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had like a few weird interactions with hecklers, but that was a new one for me. Where
I fucked up on a show last year.
Yeah,
like really fucked up. It was in like December, and we do this thing here. It's called I don't do it, but like it's probably the biggest bar show in town. It's called First Fridays. It's a great show. And they normally just pack that out. Like it'll be maybe once or twice where there's like maybe 30 people there.
Oh, okay.
But it's over at. Did you ever do Tractor when AJ was doing that show?
Yeah, I did one. Yeah.
Okay, so it's there. Oh, we were on that same show. Yeah. And so they normally like pack that place out, like to the point where it's like standing room and shit. Like like 70, 90 people in there. Oh yeah. Anyway, so maybe north of that even because it's probably close to 100 a lot of times. Anyway, so it's a competition, and everyone gets 5 minutes, and then the crowd votes who did the best. Well, I'm like getting into my set, warming up, things are going well, people are laughing, and there's a drunk dude in the back who's heckled like a couple of comics, or whatever. His girlfriend's trying to keep him down, whatever. And he just says, I forget what he said, but he had said something so fucking outlandish.
Yeah.
And I made the mistake, and again, you make mistakes, you learn. We were talking about this earlier. Everybody bombs.
Yeah.
And I made the mistake of just zeroing in on that guy with none of the skill to pull it off. and I watched the tape, and it was coming off as like mean. I was like, what? I was like, what the fuck are you doing right now?
Yeah.
And I tried to get back into my set, and everyone was just like, all right, this guy's a fucking dick. And I was like, whatever. I have 2 minutes left. And because that's the thing too, so I only have 5 minutes. I was like a minute and a half into my set, and I spent like another minute and a half on this guy.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, fine, I only have 2 minutes to bring you people back. Fuck. Nope. All right. Oh, well.
Yeah, that's such a hard line too, though, because like sometimes if you don't address it, it seems unprofessional as a comedian. Like if they're so disruptive that you have to do something to kind of pacify that. I'm no good at crowd work. I hate doing crowd work. Like I've got a few go-to lines to kind of calm people down and be like, all right, hey, I'm going to do the talking for a little while. Just wait till the next comic. You can heckle them.
You teacher them a little bit. And you shake your finger like, hey.
I always do something to the effect of like, oh, I heard you were up after me, but you're good, man. Or like something like good. That. Yeah, just like something quick to be like, not your time. And so I'm no good at crowd work, but it's such a very, because what you're saying is like, you want to win, so you can't, like, sometimes they'll have better jokes than you. You got to be ready for that. I've never like gotten into an altercation like that, but I've seen like, there are funny people out there that don't have the balls to do stand up. So they'll go to a show to be like, I'm going to show this guy. Like I've seen that a few times, but lucky enough, most of the time I've seen like pros just eat them alive,
and I'm not that. I am not that.
Yeah. It's such a tough line to figure out how to, do that. Like, and then sometimes I had this happen actually here in Albuquerque. I invited a friend and I fudged one of the words. Like I got a little tripped up on the joke, on the setup. Great joke. And my buddy in the front just starts heckling me for messing up the words. I was like, dude, fuck you. I brought you to the show. I got you a free ticket. And like I said, I'm no good at like just roasting people. So I like couldn't recover it. But yeah, you know, you have those tough shows. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how well I could do like roast humor.
See, I'm pretty decent at roast humor.
Okay.
But I'm only good at roast humor in a roast battle because outside of that, it's just mean.
Yeah, it's just rude.
It's just like, what did he just say?
Yeah. At least you're not one of those comics who we can hang out, you know? Like there's some comics who like it is always a bit, they're like always going. It's like, dude, this is not fun. Like, okay.
Are you testing material?
Yeah,
It
exactly.
is 2 a.m., dude. Stop it.
We're just playing Fortnite right now. Like, can you just like, what are you doing, dude? Yeah. So hanging out with comics is tough, but I used to act. Hanging out with actors is way worse. It's so fake. And so I used to live in LA and I was hanging out, you know, you're networking. I was hanging out with a bunch of actors and I'll never forget this one guy was like, yeah, I think I might be in the next Black Panther movie. And I was like, dog, you're white. There's just no way. It was like he had met the director at a baseball game or something. I was like, what are you talking about, dude? Yeah.
God.
There's no way he gives a shit about you. But
he meets Ryan Coogler one time. He met Ryan Coogler at a baseball game because he sold him a hot dog.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to be in the next Black Panther. It's like, no, stop it.
Yeah. I think I don't know. I think I messed up like my biggest opportunity, and you'll love this story because you're a big comic fan. Who did this movie again? The Batman vs Superman.
Zack Snyder.
Zack Snyder. I used to be a pretty big like comics fan. I would say I'm a big fan, but I'm in the presence of a super fan, so I'm like
no, you're in the presence of a virgin who had no pussy to the age of 18. And
18's still pretty early, man. You're doing fine for yourself. Don't worry about it. Jeez. No, but I that movie had just come out. I don't mean to upset you. Did not like it.
No. A lot of people didn't.
Yeah.
No, a lot of people didn't.
So I'm a big fan of Batman, and like one of the big rules is like Batman doesn't kill. And I thought in that movie it looked like he was killing a lot of people.
No, he was killing. He was.
So I didn't like it, and I had this other. I was working at a Starbucks. I had this other guy who was working with me, and we were just giving the movie shit.
No.
This guy comes up, and he's like, hey, what didn't you like about it? So I start talking to him about it. He's just asking me questions.
No!
And I'm like, I'm just ripping this movie a new asshole. And then like a week later, someone was like, yeah, I think I saw Zack Snyder in Pasadena where I live. And I was like, oh, what does he look like? And they show me the phone. I was like, I think I just, in front of this guy, just ruined, like just this random Starbucks barista just talked shit about his movie to his face. And he just sat there and was like, what didn't you like about it? So that has haunted me ever since. I'm pretty sure he'd recognize me, honestly. Dude, it was nuts.
I'd kill myself.
Especially as an actor, like I would have.
I would go into hiding if I made that guy upset.
Dude, it was so bad.
Oh my!
Dude, if I had known it was him, I'd be licking his boots, being like, "Put me in your movie." But
Robin can have a mustache, right? Robin can have a mustache, right?
Dude, it was so bad. It was so bad. It was so embarrassing.
Do you remember what you told him?
Yeah, I just was like, it was just a shit movie, and, and then I was like, I'm a big fan of the comics. Batman's not supposed to kill, and then I was like, I was just talking about like the crux of the movie was not built out enough because I thought they had like a good moment where Batman recognizes Superman's humanity because they both have moms, but like they didn't ever build up to that. It was just like, your mom's named Martha? My mom's named Martha. We're buddies now. And then I was just like, shit movie. All of Zack Snyder's movies are too dark. I can't see shit in your movie. I obviously didn't know it was him at the time, but I just ripped it like probably for honestly like 10 minutes.
I heard he fucks dudes too. I hate Zack Snyder.
I hate that guy. And that guy, I mean, if I was him, I'd be like, yeah, you're a Starbucks barista. Who gives a shit? Like, but I'm pretty sure I was definitely espousing the popular opinion at the time. So
Yeah, well, because I remember when that movie came out, and not because before I say this, I'm a huge like Snyder fanboy, like unapologetically. Like I've got his version of Superman here.
Yeah.
And then I this was my first tattoo, and my tattoo artist wants to like work on it to make this Batman look better.
Yeah.
And I want to change it to have like Affleck's logo and shit.
Okay.
And I've got a homogenization of Gal Gadot and Linda Carter. I love his movies, and I remember when that movie first came out, when like the reviews were coming out, and it was like middle of the water to bad.
yeah.
And I was like, "Fuck no, that sucks." And I went and saw it with my girlfriend at the time, and I was the only one in the theater who reacted like this. Because I mean, there were a few people who were like, "Yeah, this was great, whatever."
Yeah.
But I remember watching it, and the credits rolled, and I was like, "What was so bad? That was awesome!" Like, yes! And I remember, it was so funny, dude. I pissed her off, and honestly, it was not a good boyfriend move. I was also like 18, I think, 18 or 19. I remember I was visiting her because she lived in a little town in Mexico, and the next morning, like literally when we left the theater and I was driving back to her place, and I was buying tickets to the 9 a.m. Or the 10 a.m. showing of Batman versus Superman. And I was like, "Hey, when are you off work tomorrow?" She's like, 1:30. I'm like, "All right, I got time." And so we go, and she wakes up the next morning, we're getting ready for work. She's like, "You're gonna come see me on my break, right?" And I'm like, "When's your break?" And she goes, 10:15. And I'm like, "I got tickets to the 10 a.m. showing."
You gonna go again?
And yeah. And she was like, "Okay, but you're gonna like visit me. I want you to come visit me." And I was like, "I can't refund these."
She's like, "You've seen, we watched this last night.
Yeah.
What are you doing?"
And dude, you know what I did? I went to that fucking theater. I got a large Coke and a popcorn. And I sat down like the fucking dork I am and was like, and just got. I thought,
That's
dude,
crazy.
I saw that movie 9 times in theaters.
No way.
9 times. I swear to you.
It's not that good. You can
I
like
loved
the
it.
movie. Oh my gosh.
Dude, I thought it was the second coming of Christ. But then the 8th or the 9th viewing, I was like, okay, yeah, it has some issues, but man, this is so good.
Oh my gosh.
But then it's funny because I agree with you, like there are things in that movie that aren't fleshed out enough. But
Yeah.
then when
his cut.
his cut of it came out, like the 3-hour, 15-minute version.
That was good.
I watched that, and what's funny now, because like I remember when that movie came out, and it took a couple of months because nobody really gave a fuck about it coming out on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
But people that were like nerd fans or movie reviewers watched the extended, and they're like, "Oh, the extended cut, like it still has like if you have problems with like Batman killing, or if you have problems with Doomsday at the end, or if you have problems with like whatever,
Yeah.
there are core tenets that with the movie, which I'm not going to disagree with necessarily, but people had issues with. Those don't get fixed, but the story gets fleshed out better in that it's a very well used 30 minutes that like I see why they cut it down because they needed to have more show times in theaters, but the extra 30 minutes made more sense.
Yeah, and it really does flesh out that whole, like, it really fleshes out the whole moment that they share. It definitely extends on Batman's relationship with his mom so that it makes a little more sense when they have this moment of, like, you have a mom, I have a mom. It really builds out that narrative to where it makes sense. But in the cut version, it just is the most random shit you've ever seen.
Yeah. Well, even like the Africa scene too, because if you watch, well, I remember watching that movie and they were blaming Superman for the attack in Africa. And the reason I thought they were just mad that Superman showed up and intervened.
Yeah.
But the way the original version explains it is, or the way it makes it inferred anyway, is like Superman is the reason these people got shot, which is stupid. But then in the extended version, you see people showing up and you see reporters showing up to a pile of burned bodies.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, they think Superman lasered these people.
Yeah.
Oh, and then like with the suicide bomber, where when the movie happened, I kind of just assumed that Superman couldn't see his bomb because the chair was made out of lead. But in the extended cut, they actually explained that. Like they have that whole scene where Lois goes to his apartment and she's investigating and finds the Luthor stuff and goes, oh, his or she's in the lab afterwards, and they're like, oh yeah, the suit was made out of lead, Superman can't see the bomb, and oh he's but
Yeah.
none of that was in the theatrical version.
Yeah, and I mean, like Schneider did Watchmen, right?
Yeah.
that is one of my favorite, like not even favorite superhero movies, like favorite movies of all time. I think it's so well done.
It's an extremely well done movie. The only issue and this is an issue that a lot of people have with it, I think, but like my only issue with it is it kind of misses the point of Watchmen. Have you read the book?
I haven't. No.
Okay. So read the comic. The comic
Okay.
is fucking phenomenal.
All right.
Like legitimately one of the best books ever written. And
Okay.
And like there's stuff like I'm sure I could read it now and still find things I didn't catch the first time. Because
Okay.
I've probably read that like a good 8 times, like 7 or 8 times. I love that comic, dude. It reads like a movie. Like it's great.
Okay.
But the whole point of the book is that it's making fun of superheroes in a very dark way. So like I'm gonna turn on this fan really quick actually.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, I'm turn on this fan. I was like, why is it not
getting
as
toasty
cool as
in
it
here.
Normally isn't here. Anyway, so
Ooh, that is nice.
yeah, so in the comic, Night Owl is this like he's still retired and he's still like he is in the movie, but he's overweight. Like he's like a chubbier guy. Like he's not in shape anymore. He still kind of has it, but he's got like a beer gut.
Okay.
He's gotten a little, rough around the edges. And all of the heroes, except for Dr. Manhattan, because he's a god, and then Rorschach, they're all like out of their prime.
Yeah.
So like, do you remember the alleyway scene where they're in like street clothes and
Yeah.
Dan and I forget Silk Spectre's real name, but
Yeah.
Silk Spectre kicks the ass of all those gang members.
Yeah.
So that scene ends the same way in the book and in the movie with them being tired and they're like what the fuck just happened, and they're like excited. But in the book it makes more sense because they're both out of their prime. They haven't been doing this for a long time. They get rejuvenated from it and they go fuck, and it's like this whole thing.
Okay.
But then in the movie it's like they're both like good looking.
Yeah.
They're both in shape. They're both, and then they get tired randomly and then go fuck. Now they just seem like sadists for a different way.
Yeah.
For a different reason. And then because it's Zack Snyder and he has a very good eye for action, and he has a very good eye for like in a lot, especially like with BVS, the Snyder Cut, Watchmen, 300. You can pause most of those movies and at any time, and it looks like a comic book.
Yeah, he's so cinematic,
Yeah.
and that you can't rob him of that.
Yeah,
Like
he's very good, but then that's not what Watchmen's about. Watchmen is about how ridiculous it is that regular people are getting into costumes and fighting people.
Okay.
And it's a really good, and it's a good social commentary too, with like the 60s and
the Vietnam War.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very good at that, but making the Watchmen cool, you kind of miss the whole point of Watchmen.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just an interesting movie. What do you feel like? So like, because right now we're kind of in this weird moment where we were oversaturated by good comic book movies. Honestly, for Marvel for a long time was killing it. It was great. But then it kind of fell off the bandwagon, and now there's this resurgence of like more off-brand superhero movies. You've got like The Boys, and then you've got Invincible and all that.
Yeah.
Were you a fan or no?
Well, I'm a fan.
Yeah.
I don't love Marvel right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I went and saw the Captain America movie.
How was it?
Perfectly mediocre.
Okay.
It's exactly what you think it is from those trailers.
That's what I used to say about my penis on dating sites. Like, it is perfectly mediocre. It is right in the middle of any expectations you could possibly have.
It's like, you'll come? Question mark.
You're not disappointed, but you almost are.
Like, you saw what could have been. If I knew how to use it right.
Perfectly mediocre.
But yeah, so my thought on it is the reason why Marvel has fallen off, and really Disney as a whole.
Yeah.
But because everyone knows that Star Wars' issue has been Kathleen Kennedy. Yeah, it sounds fragile, but it'll hold together. Yeah, it'll hold together. Is Kathleen Kennedy. She ruined Star Wars. She's a big part of it. But With Marvel, what happened was, so after Endgame happened, there was a huge managerial change. So Bob Iger was the head of it for a long time, goes into retirement, and they bring in this guy named Bob Chapek. The pandemic happens, and as the pandemic starts to lift, they're like, okay, well, when we start shooting again and we can start putting out these projects, what we're going to do is we are going to have a Marvel project at all times. We're going to have a Marvel project in theaters, and we're going to have a Marvel project in the streaming services. There will never not be a new Marvel thing for people to enjoy. Yeah. When on paper, it makes sense, right? So for a money-making standpoint, you're feeding the fans because the fans are expecting at least an 8 out of 10 every time.
Yeah.
There were still missteps in the first. Again, the fact that Marvel even went for 11 years.
It's crazy.
With a pretty much 100% positive batting average.
Yeah.
Is it because there are still a lot of people that like Thor the Dark World and like Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Yeah,
or
definitely.
enjoy, what was the other one that people didn't like very much? It was Thor 2, Guardians 2, and then Captain Marvel, and then there's another one that didn't get
Captain
best.
Marvel. I didn't. Usually, I like them even if the fans don't. Captain Marvel, I couldn't quite.
See, I thought it was fine.
I didn't quite get it.
I thought it was cool, like, but I just didn't think it was like the best thing ever. But my point is like, what was good about that, outside of like the surface level stuff, is you have like when Marvel movies came out, it was an event because you only got at most 3 a year. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, it was 2.
Yeah.
So it was an event. Everyone went out to see it. You have to, and what was important is from the jump, pretty much with the Avengers, they're like, oh, we're building to something bigger, and every installment, in theory, is going to push in that direction. Not everyone did,
but
like a lot of them. Yeah, most of them did. Right? Like there were surprising ones, like Guardians had the Thanos cameo.
Yeah.
Or was another one that kind of pushed in the right direction. There's a few like that, but then there was also like Spider-Man Homecoming, where it kept it with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Or a lot of like the Thor movies, except for Ragnarok, because Ragnarok led right into Infinity War. But it was always like, we're going to go see what happens so we can know what's happening with these characters when they come together again to fight the big thing. And they had a plan.
Yeah.
And they also had Kevin Feige. And Kevin Feige had his hands in every single project. And it's like, no, this is the vision. Stay on target. And even like going into like, I remember there was an interview with him. It was in 2015 because they were trying to get, even before the MCU happened, they were trying to do an Ant-Man movie for a long time.
Yeah.
And they had Edgar Wright attached to it, the guy who did like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz and all that.
Okay. That would have been.
Yeah. Well, and there was a test reel that came out that was really cool of the action he had shot. It's all like CG and shit, but it's like the things that he had concepted. But Kevin Feige came out when they fired him and it's like, yeah, we love Edgar Wright. We want to work with him in the future, but his version of Ant-Man didn't fit into the bigger plan of what we wanted for Marvel. So we had to let him go.
Yeah.
So it's a businessman like that saw the bigger tapestry, that was willing to make the decisions that were tough, that were willing to make the right decisions to make this turn into this behemoth that it turned into. Well, when you're doing a movie at all times, a streaming services project at all times, Kevin Feige can't get his hands on every project. He just can't.
Yeah.
You also have the political side of things, and we know this now, where these companies, these Fortune 100 companies, were getting more money from investors, getting more money from stockholders, and getting more money from ESG groups based on their DEI, or it's not ESG, from what kind of company is fucking BlackRock?
Evil.
Well, right, yes, but like the finance company that BlackRock is, that gives out money to these huge companies, they were giving out money based on how they were handling DEI and how they were handling ESG. But what was more important is the DEI stuff. And so when you're forcing narratives down people's throat and when you're making creative decisions, not based upon what's best for the story, but what boxes you can check, it suffers. Mm-hmm. It suffers. And unfortunately, like Marvel had a really good track record of taking beginner directors and beginner writers that had real potential and giving them a shot and then knocking it out of the park.
Yeah.
What they're doing now is they have a not great track record of hiring people based on, let's just say, attributes that are not quantitative to a good product. Simply just checking a box and look who we hired, look at the people behind the project, but they aren't good at what they do.
Yeah.
A great example is Captain America. I'm not saying he failed because he's a black guy. I'm saying he failed because look at his previous projects. The things that the guy, I forget his name.
Yeah, Anthony Mackie.
No, the director. The director.
Oh, okay.
No, the director. Anthony Mackie was.
I was like, I love Anthony Mackie.
Anthony Mackie was one of the only good things in that movie. But
Yeah.
even then, that script was terrible. And
yeah.
that movie also had 4 different writers. What
Okay.
movie that has 4 writers has ever done well? And if
Yeah.
there are projects like that, it's very rare. But the guy, like, watch, I'll pull up his movies real quick, because the main one that he did, like the biggest movie that he's done, was the fucking horrible Cloverfield Paradox movie that came out
Okay.
on Netflix. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Dog shit.
Okay.
Fucking dog shit.
Yeah.
So the only movies he's done before Captain America was something called in 2015 called The Girls in Trouble, and is that fucking Wilmer Valderrama? Yeah, it's a movie with Wilmer Valderrama, and it went straight to DVD. Cloverfield Paradox, which was straight to fucking streaming.
Okay.
A movie called Lucy, fucking huge bomb. And then a movie called Bad Genius, and it's an English remake of some movie. And it looks like it got good reviews, but nobody fucking knew anything about it. So maybe it's good. Who knows? My point is the biggest movie he's done is Cloverfield Paradox, and it was dog shit.
Okay.
And now with Captain America: Brave New World, I'm sorry, it's got 5 writers.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
So my point is, like, they're hiring people outside looking in. It looks like they're hiring people not based on merit, and it's a real issue. And now we're falling into this thing where nobody knows in Marvel what they're doing. Nobody knows. It's like they forgot how to make a good movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of the same thing with Star Wars, where it just gets diluted, because like you can't have one vision when you're doing that much product. There's just no way you can keep up with it. And film's such an interesting thing. Like, you know, I used to act. I love acting. I kind of want to go back to acting at some point. It's like, you know, you can be the best actor in the world if you've got a bad script, if you've got a bad director. You know, it's interesting who gets blame, and it's cool that you're like kind of looking into stuff and kind of being like, oh, this is where it kind of breaks down. Because I felt so bad because I did not like Captain Marvel, but I had no issues with like Brie Larson. I thought it was so weird that she caught all the flack for that movie.
Well, she also kind of went on this press tour for Captain Marvel and started saying a bunch of anti-man shit, and like blatant anti-man shit, where it's like just strange for her to say that.
Yeah,
and then. There were a lot of things coming out from behind the scenes where she was just horrible to work with.
Oh, yeah.
And like there's an interview where it's her, Don Cheadle, and I think Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah.
And they're talking about Endgame, I think. Mm-hmm. And they just look off-put to be next to her.
Oh, really?
They just look so uncomfortable.
Huh.
Yeah. Apparently she's just a huge fucking diva.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I always I've loved her movies. She did one.
The Room was fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's like I've always thought she was so talented. So I always it's always weird with stuff like that. And I always just thought it was weird that she was getting the flack for Captain Marvel, because in my mind, and I try not to get too involved, but in my mind I was like, I thought she was the best part of that movie. I thought like the writing was low.
Yeah, not great.
I just think it's hard to make a movie, and this is kind of getting to a different subject, but it's so hard to make a movie with a character like Superman or Captain Marvel, where they're so powerful. It's like, okay, so if we look at this high stakes situation, what in reality can possibly go wrong? Like, they're so invincible.
Well, see, and I disagree.
Really?
I disagree so much. Well,
Let's get into it.
Here's why, right? Just because you have all the power in the world doesn't mean you know how to use it.
Yeah.
And a great example of that is like Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
Like Spider-Man's not bulletproof, but he's if you're telling like like a younger Spider-Man story,
yeah,
where he's still in high school, maybe he just got into college, he's gotten the great powers, great responsibility speech. Uncle Ben has already died, all that stuff. Maybe he's like a couple of years in, but even though he has, like, I think he's like on the power level, he's like the 5th strongest character in Marvel or something like that. He stopped I remember in the 90s, there's a book where I forget what run it was, but he stopped the Incredible Hulk from punching him. He just, and as Hulk got angrier trying to hit him, he just held his thing in place, his fist.
All right.
He's like, all right, fucking, and like threw him. But it's how you use the power, and it's like, what struggle do you put your character through? Like, if you're looking through it through the lens of, oh, Superman is so powerful, he can just punch everything. Well, sure, but then don't give him an adversary that he can punch through.
Yeah.
Give him an adversary. Like, it's really fun to watch. It's fun to watch Superman take on enemies. Like, I mean, it's fun to watch him like deal with a billionaire tycoon like Lex Luthor or whatever. But it's fun to watch him take on enemies like Metallo. That's an easy one because Metallo was built out of kryptonite, so he can't get close to him. Okay. How does he beat Metallo? But then also it's fun to watch. Like, yes, in theory, Superman can just shoot up into the air and buzz, but that's not fun. We're also here to watch a story. We're here to see the execution of it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, how many civilian casualties are there? How power of his? It was like how smart is Superman at the time? And that's what I really enjoyed about General Zod in Man of Steel, because Superman couldn't punch his way out of that situation. He tried to, and he leveled with General Zod, leveled half of Metropolis. And then, so they make the decision for him to kill General Zod. So now it's like, okay, that's against the character of Superman, killing people. Generally
that's so interesting.
Like,
yeah.
like generally speaking,
I have thoughts on this.
He doesn't kill.
Yeah.
But then it's a part of, okay, well, what do you do with that now that does he go on a killing rampage? And you validate like the Homelander scenario, or do you make him deal with the killing scenario? And it's like, okay, now I'm only going to kill aliens. And now I'm going to kill non-humans only, or I'm not going to kill in front of humans or kill out of, because if people get amnesia about these things, but Christopher Reeve in Superman 2 kills General Zod.
Yeah.
Like, he throws him down the fucking endless pit in the Fortress of Solitude. He throws him into a little chamber that takes out his powers, and then he throws him down the fucking hole. But people don't remember that because Christopher Reeve flew around and smiled.
I like Christopher Reeve.
I love Christopher Reeve. Oh, no, I love Christopher Reeve. But like, people don't remember that because they have a great image of those movies. But you put the Zack Snyder tone on things and you make it a realistic Superman movie, people get pissed off. It's the same thing you were saying earlier with Batman killing. Like, what's the big criticism of Batman? Is that he's got plot armor. Is that, how did Batman do this? Because he's Batman. It's like, okay, fair enough, but like, how did he do this? Because he's Batman. So then it's like, so then what I liked about that movie was, okay, you're going to make Batman kill. Okay, if you're going to do that, you have to explain why he's doing it, and you have to bring him back to being Batman in that movie. You have to. In that story, you have to bring him back to being Batman, because if Batman spears Superman at the end of that movie, he's now the Punisher. He's no longer Batman.
Yeah.
Like, because the way that I always viewed Ben Affleck's Batman in that movie was, okay, he's a guy that's been through 20 years of Batman. He's lost Robin. Batgirl's probably already paralyzed. He doesn't have a great relationship with Alfred. He's obviously very disgruntled's not the right way to put it. He's jaded.
Yeah.
He's like a war-torn veteran. He's very in the extended cut of that movie, there's the part where Clark Kent goes to Gotham and he's talking to those homeless people in the projects, and the homeless guy's like, yeah, there's something mean in him, and he's been hunting. It's like, oh shit, okay, like Batman's like, in the first scene you have of Batman, he's not even a human. He's moving around like a figure. Like, remember he's like in the corner and he just shoots out to get away from the cops.
Yeah,
he's moving around like a creature.
Yeah,
so he's not even a man anymore. So it's like, okay, through his point of view, he's gone through 20 years of this, and now there's an alien that looks like a human that is bulletproof, can fly through buildings. He doesn't know about kryptonite yet. Flies through buildings, and he's leveled half of Metropolis, and very clearly from the opening of BVS insinuates another 9/11 event.
Yeah.
And he killed the only other living survivor of his species. Batman's like, yeah, bro, my Batmobile gets a 50 cal now. Sorry.
Yeah.
And humans, if you're in my way, sorry. Like, I need to get the kryptonite to kill the big guys and kill all of us. I kind of understood that. But then when you get to the point where he's about to spear Superman, now granted, the Martha scene, in my opinion, not the best execution. Not the best, but what's important about that scene, I wish they would have thought it out a little bit more, maybe wrote it a little bit better. But what I like about that scene is that that's the first time that you really see Batman have PTSD. Like that's been one of my things with the character is like, how does Batman go, superheroes in general, how do they go through all these traumatic events over and over and zero PTSD?
Yeah.
Like they all just go to the Hall of Justice and they're like,
that was crazy,
like,
right?
That was why. Yeah, exactly. So you see a Batman dealing with all of that.
Yeah.
And then so it got to the point now where it's like, I'm going to kill the guy who's going to end up destroying the world. And he finds out not only does he have a mother, he has a mother with the same name as his. And if he realizes he has the flashback of his parents getting killed, and he realizes that if he kills Superman, not only does he not become Batman anymore, he now becomes Joe Chill. He now becomes the guy who killed his parents.
Yeah.
And then his whole 20-year crusade was for nothing.
Yeah.
Because at the end of it, he didn't save the person that's ruining the city, potentially. Mm-hmm. He killed him. Just like what Joe Chill thought was that these are, and there's different versions of Joe Chill. There's versions where it's just a random mugging. There's other versions where where Joe Chill hated millionaires. There's versions where he's a part of a gang. But at the end of the day, he becomes a criminal that's killing the people in power.
Yeah. I mean, so to me, I think I'm obviously not as into comics as you are. So like my perception of it is my favorite like Batman comic is just Red Hood.
Okay.
And it seems clear to me that like Batman's biggest weakness is his inability to like kill.
Yeah.
And it's actually not a pro, it's a con. Where they're like, all right, we keep capturing these guys. And they keep getting out and killing. So, like, at what point are you going to do what it takes to stop it? And Batman kind of at the end is like, I don't have that ability. Because if I start, I won't stop. And then I become evil. And then you have Jason Todd who's like, yeah, but, like, you can also just do it. Like, there's a middle ground to find here. That would be my dream role is Jason Todd. I think that is one of the most interesting, best written comic book characters.
Best written is a stretch, but he's a cool one.
I think he's the best. He's truly gray. I think Marvel does this a lot better than DC. It's like DC is black and white. And then you have Marvel where it's like it's gray, but he'll always choose the right thing, or it's gray and then they'll always choose the wrong thing.
I agree. The way that I've found to view the two properties is Marvel is humans, for the most part.
Yeah.
Marvel is humans ascending to godhood, and DC is about gods becoming human.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I've never thought about it like that. That's awesome.
And there's obviously exceptions to that rule, but generally speaking, even if you look at the humans of the DC universe, Batman, Bruce Wayne,
he's a billionaire,
multi-billionaire, becoming a vigilante and putting himself through the worst situations possible. The Flash, yes, he's a human, but then he also becomes a god.
Yeah, he's like a super genius,
and he is a god, right?
Yeah.
And then Superman, obviously, god. Wonder Woman, god. Green Lantern. Depends on the day, but and I love Green Lantern, but like that's an exception to the rule. But with Marvel, you have a lot more of the regular humans.
Yeah, he's just a high school kid.
They have greatness thrust upon them.
Yeah,
rather than they have greatness thrust upon them that they have to ascend to, rather than the humans of DC. They already have greatness, and they have to learn their own humanity.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
But I completely agree, because I mean, like, if you look at like the gray type characters, obviously Red Hood is very much like the Punisher. Maybe toned down a lot more because he's part of the Bat family.
Yeah.
But he's a lot like the Punisher. And it's the gray that they live in that makes them interesting. But yeah, I mean, with somebody like Jason Todd, I think, because that was it wasn't written by Grant Morrison, but it was during the Grant Morrison era where they brought Jason Todd back.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy that story a lot because it's very rare because when superheroes have somebody die in their life, they typically don't have to relive that in the flesh, but that's what Jason Todd was.
Yeah.
It's a reminder of Batman's failure.
Yeah.
Where it's like he could have, if he was better, he would have saved his Robin.
Yeah.
But he didn't. And also Robin got himself into a really stupid scenario. Have you ever read Death in the Family?
So I haven't read the comic. I just watched the cartoon movie.
Okay, no, so you should really read Death in the Family. It's very weird how Jason Todd dies. Like him, and it's during like it's like the late 80s into the 90s. So like at this point we're like in the real world where, you know, we're funding Osama bin Laden in the Middle East to go fight the Russians and all that kind of stuff. And so like they actually go over to the Middle East and they're dealing with the Joker and a bunch of arms dealers, and he gets captured there and shit like that.
Yeah, I have like a very vague memory. Maybe I watched like a YouTube like summary of whatever the fuck.
But it's really, really good. And Under the Red Hood is really cool. And it's strange because like if I remember correctly from the movie, they bring Jason Todd back in a Lazarus pit, right?
Yeah, they do the whole like it's like what's his name? Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah.
And yeah,
and then in the books it's really like Superboy Prime, he like punches a hole into the universe or some shit like that, and like
it's so much worse.
Yeah, and he finds a way to bring Jason Todd back, and it's weird. It's super weird.
Okay,
I prefer the Lazarus Pit method.
Yeah, it's a little simpler.
Yeah. Watch, I'll find it real quick. It's so fucking weird, but I agree. Like, let's see, Superboy Prime, Jason Todd.
Dude, this is such a nerdy conversation. I'm married. I don't think I'm gonna get laid after this. I'm gonna be honest with you.
So it's during Infinite Crisis. That's right. And Jason Todd, long story short, punched a hole into reality and brought Jason Todd back. It opened up like a portal. Yeah.
Dog, I gotta do that, but for like JFK or something. Just like punch a hole.
Yeah, that's right. His punch altered reality.
Oh my god.
And it's including the past. That's right. So
let's do it.
Yeah, it's absolutely fucking bonkers. But I don't know. But back to your original question about like the state of the movies and shit. It's it's like, think about it. Think about
so long ago, but for real.
Yeah, but think about the best superhero movies that have been made. Even you don't have to go back to like the 90s or the 80s or the 70s, but think about like Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Yeah. The Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, the original, I mean, Last Stand's not great, but the first 3 X-Men movies, or like even like the first Iron Man.
So good. Or that to me, I think Spider-Man 2 with like Doc Ock and the first Iron Man movie, if you want to like make a good superhero movie, those are the 2 movies you should study the most.
And what is the common denominator between both of those movies?
White people.
But there's two common denominators, and I think these are the 2 that make superhero movies great. It's your template of where you need to start. It's people with immense potential, and then now they get the power to raise that potential, but it's the responsibility along with it.
Yeah.
Right? So you think about Peter Parker. He's already Spider-Man, and life is not going well for him, and he actually decides to quit. But then he sees that the grass isn't greener on the other side, and he knows the right thing to do is to make the personal sacrifices to be Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. And then you look at Iron Man, where he's on the top of the world. He's this multi-billionaire. You know, he owns the biggest weapons company in the world. He's sleeping with a different supermodel every night, got all the money he could ever need. The press can never get enough of him. He's whatever. But then he goes overseas with a bunch of Air Force guys who are just regular Joes, regular dudes who just signed the dotted line to serve their country. And now they're getting attacked with the weapons that he created. Well, what do you do with that? Do you then continue your company in the path that it's going down and keep making all the money? Or do you have this or do you use your brain and you use your ability to become the best version of what your weapons could be?
Yeah.
Because Spider-Man, I mean, that's the whole conversation with Ben Parker, where he's like, you need to decide who you're going to become. You could become this evil version, which eventually becomes in Spider-Man 3, right down to the dancing. But, you could become this guy that's a banker. You could become the Green Goblin. You could become Doc Ock. Because that's what I really like about his villains in those first 2 movies is they're basically the perfect foils to Spider-Man. Where it's like if Peter Parker grew up with his scientific brain, he could easily have become Norman Osborn. He could have easily become Dr. Octavius. But he chose to do the right thing, even though it brings him no fortune, no fame, no nothing. And then same thing with Tony Stark. He kept making money, obviously, because it's Stark Industries. He just switched the way he was doing it and then took the best of his weapons and became the hero.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I'm kind of like, yeah, and I'm a huge fan of this new, like, I recently have really enjoyed, like, watching Invincible.
Yeah.
Also, just because, like...
I've only seen the first season, but I know what happens in the second season.
Okay. The second season was not, in my opinion, as good. Third season's, I haven't finished. I'm not caught up yet, but it seems pretty good. But, like, it's nice because it's just superheroes doing superhero shit. There's not like, and I'm a fan of The Boys. I'm a fan of movies that have a message too.
Yeah,
like
but
I'm not upset by them, but I will say like, it's kind of refreshing to have something that it's like, oh yeah, this is just like
the human struggle.
Yeah, it's just like they're in high school, or they're in high school, they don't know how to date. You know, like it's kind of nice to watch those things too. And I think like, I don't know, I do think, yeah. Kind of what we were saying about comedy before the podcast is like it can be really good, and then there's a time and a place for comedy to be preachy or like to have a message. Like I think, you know, there are a lot of comedians out there that have been legitimately important for the world, but that I think that that's an exception to the rule and not the standard.
You think comedy should have a message?
I think not my comedy. I think I'm a huge fan of like Dave Chappelle. I think that, you know, you've got all these other comics who have done it really well in the past that, you know, I think what's the 7 bad words you can't say on TV? Like, I think that's one of the greatest stand-up bits that's ever happened.
That's Carlin, right?
Yeah. George Carlin. He is someone who came with a message. And so those messages, you know, they knew how to thread the line, like, really well of being like, they're so funny, and then you kind of think about it afterwards. That is not what I do. That's not what I try to do at all.
Well, I think Carlin's an exception.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Because it's an exception.
Even like with Dave Chappelle, I wouldn't even say, because Dave Chappelle, so he, with his specials, I think he just makes fun of everything and everyone. And then you have stuff like his, it's not a comedy thing, but it's the video he put out right after the George Floyd incident. It's called 8 minutes, 23 seconds. It's however long the cop's neck was on George Floyd. That's the title of it. And it's not stand-up at all, but it's him delivering a message.
Yeah.
About the struggle of an African-American guy in America. And I enjoyed that a lot, but that had its place outside of comedy. Because for me,
I think it's hard to pull off.
Well, I think comedy shouldn't have a message because it's an escape. Like if you're talking about, okay, there's a difference. I think there's a difference between having a message and forcing people to hear it and acknowledging things that are going on. Because and you see this a lot, obviously, with African-American comedy. When you see them talking about the experiences they've had and making light of it, no matter how much comedy they pull out of their experience, that experience still happened. Mm-hmm. And then when it's well written enough, you now have the byproduct of thinking about it afterwards. And I think that's when it hits, right? Because you're still laughing at it. It's like, man, it's really fucked up, though. He's right. Like, it's fucked up that happens, but damn, that's funny. But then comedy that's like preachy, when it's shoving a thing down your throat because this over here is, you need to believe what I'm saying. This over here is, hey, I'm just showing a mirror to our reality.
Yeah.
And we're all laughing at it, but this is how shit actually is. Yeah. And I think it's a balancing act between the two when you start going into topics like that.
Yeah. Ooh. I mean, stand-up comedy is, I think, one of the things that makes it the most difficult, like one of the more difficult art forms to really kind of get your head around is there's not, in my opinion, I don't think that there's like a right or like a wrong way to do it, because comedy is subjective, but the outcome of comedy is not subjective. It's like, all right, did you laugh or did you not laugh? But there is 1 million ways to get there. You got like a guy like Jeselnik who does a setup, a punchline, and then a tag maybe, right? And there's a bunch of nuance in that, but what he's doing is jokes, joke after joke after joke after joke.
Extremely dark humor at that, which is almost, especially today, is almost impossible to pull off.
Or even like, a Jerry Seinfeld, who's that's what comedians do, right?
Yeah.
If you look at like Jerry Seinfeld is the archetype of a comedian. It's like he gets up there and he makes people laugh, yada yada. But he's as much a comedian as, he's not popular anymore, but like a Dane Cook. It's like, I don't know what this guy's doing. He's talking, and you can't rob him of like, stadiums used to laugh.
Dude,
stadiums.
Like a couple years ago, it was funny. I was flipping through HBO and they had Vicious Circle on there, and I was like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I haven't listened, because I haven't actually seen Vicious Circle. I'd only listened to it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's right. Let's put that on. Because I was a kid, obviously, when he was huge.
Yeah.
But I forgot how fucking big that guy was.
Yeah,
and a lot of people don't like him.
Yeah,
for various reasons. But you can't deny how important that dude was for where comedy is now, specifically for social media. Because he was the first like big MySpace comic who built all of his stuff off of that, promoted all of his stuff on MySpace, and then he, again, like you said, stadiums, arenas. Like, if I implore anyone, just put on Vicious Circle and watch the first 10 minutes. The eruption that happens when he walks on the stage, and he doesn't even get through complete sentences in a good amount of time.
Yeah.
He goes, I love lying. Everyone just explodes. And it's like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, you can't like, and that's the thing, is like, he's just as much a comedian. There's all these comics that people like to shit on, like for different reasons, like, oh, crowd work. Like, it's so funny to me. Like, my thing is like impressions. People shit on impressions a lot. And like, there's definitely a lot of bad impressionists, but like comedy, stand-up comedy specifically, it can be all these different things. There's not really like a wrong way to do it. The criteria of when it's good or not, it will always be, did they laugh or did they not?
What's in the room.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, and that's what's also, I love the specials that come up. I love that stand-up comedy has, a social media presence, and I'm trying to figure out how to make that work. I'm not good at it, but like,
neither am I, bud.
Yeah. But the real thing is like, is what you were saying, is like, the real thing is, this is live art. Like, this is what we're doing right here, right now. The stakes have never been higher. The reward has never been higher. The failure has never been lower than this moment right here, Like, if a movie bombs, at least, you filmed it 6 months ago, or, however long editing took. And even if like that movie bombs, it can go on to be critically acclaimed. You see that all the time.
A cult classic.
Yeah, a cult classic. I mean, Fight Club had terrible reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Fight Club. That's like one of the people's lists of top 10 movies. That's often near the top. It's a great movie. Critics
it can find its audience.
Exactly. That stand-up comedy, that doesn't happen that night. Like, you went up there and that night you bombed or you killed.
Yeah, nobody goes on the drive home, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
was funny.
Yeah, exactly. No one's like, a year or two from now, they're like, you know what? Let me like remember that. It's like, so that's what's so interesting about stand-up comedy. I think musicians have some semblance of that too, but like, that live art form, it's just so open, and it's kind of, that's what makes it so scary. And that's what makes, because I've been acting for a long time. I love acting. The reward for stand-up comedy is so much higher because the risk is so much higher. Like, if I did short films, nothing crazy, or plays, and like, so the real act of like knowing how well you did, because everyone's so well mannered around those things, is you read your reviews. And that's the way to know whether or not you did well, is reading reviews after. And if you get good reviews, it's like, wow, all right, I thought I was doing good. I was doing good. But in stand-up comedy, reviews don't matter at all. You don't have to give a shit about that because, like I said, the outcome of comedy is not subjective. It's like these people laughed or they didn't laugh. So right there in the room, you get to know if you're good or not. And sometimes you're not good. And I've always described it as like, it feels like you're giving a class presentation and you're peeing your pants and you can't address the fact that you're peeing your pants, but everyone knows you're peeing your pants. That's what bombing feels like. But then, like, I've never done cocaine, but when you kill it, that has to be what cocaine feels like. I cannot stop walking around being like, oh, shit, I'm so good. So it's just like the highest stakes. So it's addictive.
Yeah.
That's what it is, man. I love it. I mean, like, if I'm an open micer the rest of my life, I don't care. I'll probably keep doing it. Like, I don't.
You're here for the love of the game, son.
Dude, for real. So it's fun, man. It's a good time.
So how long have you been doing stand-up for?
A while now, yeah. I'm always hesitant to say how long.
Don't be embarrassed. Who gives a fuck?
Because here's the thing. It's like sometimes I'll say how long, and I feel like I lose a show in that moment if it's the wrong way. I've been doing it a year now, just past a year. And so it's not a long time. Yeah, not a long time. I started...
Are you lying?
No, I'm not. I started in February of last year.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and so sometimes I tell people that, and like at open mics especially, I feel like I'll have a good set, and then a show booker will come up to me like, hey, man, how long you been doing comedy? And I'll tell them, and they're like, okay. And they'll just leave. And I'm like,
that's just dumb.
That's how I feel about it.
Maybe because Albuquerque I think is a unique place to be doing comedy at because nobody gives a fuck how long you've been doing it.
Yeah.
People just care, like, are you funny? Now that's also subjective too. Are you my friend? Then funny comes second or third.
Yeah.
But you know, for the most part, it's are you funny?
Yeah.
And that's how it should be.
Yeah.
And a lot of people shit on it, but that's what I do love about Kill Tony is like some of these people that get big off Kill Tony have only been doing it 3, 4, 5, 6 years, whatever, but they're good.
Yeah.
They are good.
I mean, yeah, you got to give it up for that guy. I mean, someone in Albuquerque just like Kill Tony, you got to give it to him. He's blowing people up right now, which is great. You know, some of his stuff he does, I'm like, all right, man, calm down. But someone made a good point to me recently of like what he's done for comedy is amazing. And I forget who said this, so I'm not going to give him credit. I feel bad. But he was like, it's so out there and it's so like edgy that like now my stuff looks like clean comedy. It's like, dude, like I love that. Like, you know, and like I said, I'm a fan of like, you know, he's done a few things that I'm like, geez, man, why'd you do that? But he, like, what he's done for comedians has been great. And yeah, what he's done for my comedy specifically has been awesome.
Well, I think personally, I think funny is still funny. Now, granted, you'll have areas or you have cities or you'll have rooms that maybe lean a little more left or lean a little more right. Like, for instance, like I can do well in Albuquerque. I have done well in Albuquerque. But then, like, last year in October, me, Jake Otero, and then Zach Abeda, we went down to Ruidoso. And I did my material there. And that's one of the best sets I've ever had in my life. Maybe the best set I've ever had in my life because I just fucking slaughtered.
Yeah.
And like, and part of my bit where I say that I'm Christian, I got a fucking applause break, but then I made fun of it.
Yeah.
And then I made fun of where I do stand up from, and I made fun of my comedy, and they still loved it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, there are places where certain versions of comedy do better, but in general, if your funny can travel, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
If you have the ability to not pander to your audience, but understand where your audience is at and meet them there. Yeah. So I think there's a difference there. I think there's pandering, which can come off and people can tell when it's inauthentic and weird and a bit gay. And then there's having the skill to meet them halfway. And it's like, oh, okay, this guy knows how to read a room properly. He sees what the other comics has done and blah, 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 blah. He or she can change in the moment. It's like, okay, well, that's just a hallmark of a good comic. Yeah. Being able to figure out, okay, well, my shit right now is not working. And that's what I'm always worried about like going out of state or like doing newer shows where it's like, okay, well, I don't have that much in the arsenal right now. I don't have that many tools. Yeah. So if this shit doesn't work, and that's why because I'm terrified of crowd work and I'm not good at it and I just don't like doing it. Yeah. Same as you. It's like, because, you know, people shit on crowd work comics a lot.
Yeah, and I don't get that.
Oh, I don't get it either because for me, it's like, okay, well, what's your option? If you have two options, of material comic or whatever, and then a crowd work comic.
Yeah.
At least with your material, you know exactly what you're going to say. You can have a lot of comics have pre-planned crowd work and pre-planned like responses, and they have like, they have like choices A through D or whatever, what they're going to say depending on what this person's going to say based off experiences they've had and things they've written or whatever. But even then, if you're leaving your but if you're leaving a good chunk of your set up to the audience to drive,
Yeah.
no, I'm not going to fly to Europe without a plane.
Yeah.
I'm not going to swim there. Like, that's stupid. No, I know where I'm going. I know how I'm going to get there. I love that.
Yeah.
And if I can interject a little bit of things based off what the crowd's, like someone says something in the crowd or how they react or whatever, like that's perfectly fine. But I forgot where I was going with the crowd work stuff. But yeah, I never understood the shitting on the crowd work.
Yeah.
People. I don't know.
And like I feel the same way. I feel the same way about like any like like especially like, I do the Trump impression. People like really shit on that. And I do understand it a little bit because it's so over inundated and there's a lot of shitty versions out there. But to me it's like, okay, like is it bombing? No. All right, like you got to give it to them, especially with crowd work. And I think I have a lot of respect for crowd work because I can't do it. So, but yeah, there's this one comic I know, and she feels like she told me recently, she's like, yeah, I feel like I'm not booking shows because I do a lot of crowd work, and so I guess that's tacky. And I was like, I did not. That astounded me when she said that because I was like, damn, I couldn't imagine doing crowd work. I'm like, I'm not, I feel like that takes balls. So yeah, I don't know. And luckily there's like I feel like the top level comics usually are the ones who are like really good about judging. No, you're good. Like you're a great joke writer or you're good at this. Ignore everyone else. And it's kind of like everyone who's been doing it a little longer than you that is in the same place. That's pretty quick to tell you it's tacky. Or when you're new, and when you're new with like me, that means a lot. You're like, oh, your impressions are tacky. That like cuts deep because like I don't know what I'm doing here. Like I don't want to be tacky.
Well, do you know what you're doing? Person is giving me critiques. Do you know what you're doing?
Yeah. Now, yeah, I think like when I was like 6 months in, 9 months in, honestly, even
on Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday, like last week, those words meant a lot to me, and now I've kind of realized like, you know what? Like this is the tools I have to use. Like book me or don't book me. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I bring to the table. I'm not going to like try and change that around anymore. And that's such a different mindset than acting, where it's like acting is, no, the whole point is I'm going to become what you need me to become to make this a good project. Stand up is the opposite of that. It's like, no, you are you regardless of what happens. There is a goal and you're trying to hit that target, but like, there's no point in trying to, because what you were saying, like, if you're faking anything, the audience will hate it. It comes off as inauthentic, all that shit. So you have to like, all right, I'm going to be myself. I hope this fucking works,
Well, what I'm starting to find out over the last few months really is as I'm writing, as I'm doing more shows, going to more open mics, trying to figure out my material, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, why don't things work, why do things work. A lot of it is what is my voice? Not just what is my voice, what is my point of view? Why do I think these things are funny? Why do I want to say them on stage? And it could be as simple as that's dumb.
Yeah,
that could
that's
work.
what I was saying. Dude.
But it could also be like with that suicide joke we were talking about that I'm working on. I was like, that's actually, because I've thought about that for years.
Yeah.
I've thought about that for years, where it's like, that's such a weird, in my own religion.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's a weird incongruence. And I see, and I understand, because I don't want to burn my materials, I don't want to get into it, but like I see why people in the religion say, well, this is why it is. And I understand that. But you can't negate how ridiculous on paper that is. Because in theory, wouldn't you, if you're the leader of this religion, wouldn't you want, like, you know what I mean? Like it's, and there's so much there to unpack that I'm trying to figure out. And then it's like, well, especially with stuff like religion, it's like, okay, how much am I going to, because I have a pretty good barometer on like what I think is offensive about Christianity specifically. Like, you're never going to see me up there making fun of, like, blatantly making fun of Jesus or God.
Yeah.
You're never going to see me making fun of people for believing in Christianity or any religion.
Yeah.
You're not going to see me making fun of stuff like that or like the tenets of it. You're not going to see me make like, you have a really good.
If you want to see me making fun of Christians tonight, at
no,
6
but you have a really good crucifixion joke. And when you said that, like, there's a lot of stuff that I look at, I'm like, oh, that's really fun. That was actually really good. Well thought out. It's rare that I look from every type of, whether it's like local comics to huge, like the stars of comedy right now. It's rare that I look at it and I'm like, I'm pissed that I didn't think of that.
Dude, I know exactly how you feel.
I am pissed that I'm mad that you have that joke because that makes perfect sense.
I know.
Because like your premise of what you're talking about, I've always thought about, but I've just never thought to unpack it. It's like, oh, it's obvious, right? They did da, 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 da. But then the way you do it with the and all that, I'm like, oh no, that's incredible.
Yeah,
that makes perfect fucking sense. So yeah, it's I think about that where it's like, how do I not offend people, like outright offend people? Like, I do, like, a part of my stuff is like with like Patrice O'Neal, he had a good quote where he was like, I don't want all of you guys to like me. I'm cool with if 75% of the audience likes me and 25% hates me. That means I'm doing my job right. I'm not here to make everyone agree with me. I just want people to laugh at it.
Yeah.
And inevitably in that pursuit, you're never going to get 100% laughter.
Yeah.
Right. And I understand that the things that I talk about are going to anger a lot of people and are going to piss off a lot of people. And that's totally fine. But it's like figuring out, like, why am I saying these things? What is my point of view? And then how do I translate that the best that I can? Because you can have the best ideas possible. But if you're a shitty messenger, it's just going to come off as cheap shock comedy.
Yeah.
And nobody likes that. Like we're like, nobody, especially today, with the abundance of stand-up, nobody enjoys just going up there talking about dick and balls.
Oh my gosh,
God knows what.
There's this open mic comic I saw recently, and his opening premise was, so I was fucking my dog last week, and I was like, where could this possibly go? I laughed. We all laughed, and I think he thought he was killing it, and we were just laughing at how bad it was.
You were laughing at him.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It felt kind of bad, but it was so shocking and bad that I couldn't help it, and me and my buddies couldn't help it.
And it's just dumb. It's like, well, that's not going to really get you. Yeah. Unless, I don't know how you write your way out of that one. It sounds like he didn't.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just, it's very... Yeah, and that's what I like about comedy getting so popular now is it's forcing everyone to you have to get better.
Yeah.
Like, you have to.
Yeah.
You have to write better material. You have to do more stage time. You have to understand how to do this as quick as humanly possible.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, like I said, to me, right now, it's just about getting good. And it's so helpful to talk like this with other comics and just like, yeah, like I said, to me, it's like if I do open mics the rest of my life, like, that's fine.
Are you cool with that, though?
I think so, honestly, because I didn't book shows for a long time in Denver, and it's gotten a lot better. And I kept being like, why am I doing this? And I just kept going back out because, like, to me, it is like addictive and so much fun. And there are good rooms in Denver. I think that helps, where it's like even open mics will have a small audience. And it's like, if I could kill that room, like... it felt good.
But don't you want to do that at big comedy clubs?
Yeah, of course I do.
Don't you want to do that?
Of course I do.
Don't you want to get paid $12,000 for a weekend?
Hell yeah. But my main goal right now is like, I just want to be good. Like, that's where I'm
same
at.
Here. And same here. But I think you do yourself, and what the fuck do I know? But I really do think that you do yourself a disservice. Because, like, this is going to sound so corny and so stupid. It is. I already hear my thought. But self-talk is real, dude.
Yeah, I agree.
And whether it's you're saying it out loud or you're saying it in your head, like, yeah, I'm just cool with open mic for the rest of my life. Dude, you might end up being an open micer for the rest of your life.
That's fair.
But if you're like, because you can walk and chew gum at the same time, right? You can say, because that's where I'm at right now. Like, that's why, like, outside of like the shows that me and AJ do, I'm not like, and God bless her, Sarah that runs at Dry Heat, like, I would say 70% of the time, if I asked her to get on the show, she would let me. Because she knows I really want to be there, and she knows that I'm trying to get better, and she knows that I'm actually pretty decent, right? So but I haven't like put myself out there to get booked on more shows because and that's one of the biggest things I tell other comics and like my friends, like literally half the shows that I get booked on outside of the ones that I put on are because I asked.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I didn't ask to get on Casadas. I got asked, thank God. But like a lot of the shows that I get on is because I asked to be there.
Yeah.
Right. And so I say that because like I haven't been on a lot of shows lately outside of my own. I mean, last night or 2 nights ago was the first show that I did since New Year's.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing a lot of shit with the podcast and moving, but like I burned half my material and I'm just trying to focus on writing better shit. And I hated everything that I was writing. So I was like, I only have like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask to be on a show and then bomb when
Yeah.
in theory somebody else could have taken that spot and done better.
Yeah.
I'm here to make the show better. Like and I'll get better from that. So I'm definitely like just trying to get better at this, trying to get good, trying to be proficient. But at the same time, I want to do cool shit.
Yeah.
And I think you do yourself a real disservice by not allowing yourself to be like, nah, fuck that. I'm going to do cool shit.
Yeah. I think it's
Because you have the potential to do cool shit, dude.
stop.
I think you do yourself a disservice, man.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like, self-talk is real. I think, it's one of those things where you help yourself with the disappointment of not booking shows a little bit. And I think, what it is too, is like, I'm definitely nervous because I think I told you this, I'm moving to Austin for like a job. But obviously that's like the peak comedy scene in the world right now, I feel like. And so it's kind of interesting. Like, all right, I felt like I just got my feet under me in Denver and where I'm booking shows in Denver now and then coming back here for shows. And then, a buddy of mine, we were talking about doing a little road trip, seeing if we could do a tour. And so it's like, oh man, I had all this going for me and now I'm starting at ground zero again, as far as networking is concerned. And so it's like, I think it's like kind of preparing myself for like, all right, you're going to have to like reprove yourself for a little while. And that's okay. But I think you're right, is like, all right, I want shows. I feel like I'm good enough to be on shows. I've done this before. Yeah, I think that's important to talk about. Good note.
But what I will say, though, is you're not starting at ground zero.
Yeah.
Because you have, I mean, it's not a long time, obviously, but like you have a year of experience, but you also have that year of experience. You've been doing this. You have a light understanding of what comedy is, what your comedy is. You have an understanding of how you are on stage. You have material that's really good. So, bro, just go to fucking open mics and level the place.
That's
Dude,
what I'm
like,
trying to
like
do.
if I were you,
Yeah.
and this is only from being in Austin for like a week, less than a week. If I were you, I would go sign up for an open mic at the Creek. It's a late one, but a late night open mic, because I've heard of like different, like when I went there, it wasn't a ton of people. It's a late one too. Like I think signups were like at 11 p.m.
Yeah.
Super
Damn.
late. Yeah, super late open mic at Saturday nights. But go do that. I would sign up for also at the Creek in the Cave. I would go sign up for Banana Phone.
Okay, I've been to both of those like on a weekend visit. I just watched didn't do it, but yeah.
Yeah, go to Banana Phone, and go see shows like the Velveeta Room, go see shows at Black Rabbit, and just go find all these other open mics and these shows, and just be like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Just go figure shit. Just go do it, man.
Yeah, it's certainly gonna be interesting. Yeah, it's gonna be funny too, because like a lot of my material is like religion based, because that's what I know. Like my dad was a pastor. I grew up in the church.
Yeah.
So that.
Oh, no wonder you like my shit, because you're like, yeah, me too.
Yeah, dude, 100%. I think a lot of people have that experience, and so I still I would still consider myself a Christian. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays in Austin, where you feel like it's always like it changes, because I've got a bit that in Denver just murders, it levels it, and it does mid here. And then
Which one?
It's the Scorpio one, where I talk about being a Scorpio. Anyway, I don't
know if I've seen you do that or not.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
But anyway, it's like it levels it in Denver. But then here in Albuquerque, I sit it in the middle of my set because it does okay. And then the religious stuff kills here. And it does pretty good in Denver, but it doesn't, it's a different laugh. You know, when you get like 3 unique laughs, like there's a good crowd laugh, but then you have like 3 people who are all just like building it up so much. You got like a witch to your right.
Yeah.
A fucking troll to your left. Just, it sounds so good. Dude, that, yeah.
And then you have Cardo Mad in the back.
Dude, that guy made one of my clips.
I love Cardo, dude.
Yeah, he's so cool. Yeah, but yeah, so it's funny that the religious stuff plays so well here. So I'm excited to move to Austin and see how that kind of trickles down as like, are you guys, you know, because Austin is such a unique place too, because we're moving there. Someone told us the blue pimple of Texas. It's like the only liberal place in Texas.
One of, yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting because they're definitely different than a Denver liberal, like a little more brash, a little more like dark humor than Denver. But it's going to be fun. Figuring it out.
Those trannies got big dicks down there, dude. They chew Copenhagen. They drink Budweiser.
You would know, my guy.
Yeah,
You would know.
hey,
You would
yes,
know.
sir.
You did research. I can see. All right. Goodness.
No,
gravy.
I think it'll be a good time down there.
Yeah.
Man. Plus, I think I'm interested to find out how it works out for you, for real. Like, because that is it's not done evolving, I don't think. And I think,
Yeah, no, it's so fresh.
and it'll be interesting to see what it looks like in a few, I don't even know when the bubble's going to pop, but eventually when it does pop and you have everyone that's still about stand-up doing stand-up,
Yeah.
the audiences won't go away though.
Yeah,
Because
I don't
there's
think
so much comedy there, and you have so many heavy, like A-list comics
Yeah, I mean,
going there every week. A-list comics who live there. Like,
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
I mean, Shane Gillis is out there now, from what I hear. Dude, you'll appreciate this story. I heard Adam Ray's down there, but we were at an open mic. You know Adam Ray, yeah? He does
Yeah.
the Dr. Phil
Yeah,
character.
yeah.
I was at an open mic. This guy went and did he did Adam Ray doing Dr. Phil. And it was an open mic and it was just comics in the room. And he just got roasted alive.
Good.
It was
Good.
one of the I was I still think about it all the time. It's in my brain all the time. I was like, can you imagine if I went to an open mic and just started doing Borat? Everyone's like, yeah, we know who Borat is, dude. We know this. What are you doing? It was so weird. It was such a weird moment.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. People getting made fun of for joke thievery in real time makes me so happy.
Yeah. It was crazy.
No,
Have you
'cause-
ever had someone steal your joke?
My joke's not good enough to steal.
Dude, I disagree.
Well, actually, listen.
It's like open mic comedy, but still, it sucks.
Listen.
Yeah.
Listen. My Passion of the Christ joke.
Okay. Yeah.
I start doing that joke around town. Mm-hmm. There is I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to call it joke thievery
Yeah.
because I don't know if it is.
Yeah.
But there is a comic in town that does a Passion of the Christ. Nobody was doing Passion of the Christ jokes, at least that I saw, or at least that I heard of.
Yeah.
This guy's pretty new too. Started around the same time that I did. Starts doing a Passion of the Christ joke. And he compares it to a horror movie like I do. But he just changes the horror movie. And he does it very cleverly.
Yeah.
I'll tell you afterwards what the joke is.
Okay.
And I very much liked the joke.
But
But I didn't start seeing that after I started doing my joke.
yeah.
And I do think about that sometimes, did he see me do that somewhere? Or is this the definition of parallel thinking?
Yeah.
Because it's not like my joke is so deep that it has layers to it where you can snuff out okay, subject, right? Like the subject of the joke, okay, parallel thinking. And then the premise, the setup, punchline. Okay, right when you get around the punchline, it's are we stealing yet?
Yeah.
Then if the tag is the same, we're really stealing. Now if
Yeah.
the follow-up is, okay, now we're really stealing.
Yeah.
For instance, there was a person that went to Dry Heat. It was an out-of-towner. I forget where the fuck they're from. I'm not going to say who it is because a lot of people in town like her. Whoops. Whoops. But it's a chick. Came into town last year. And I'm sitting in the back, and Jake is running tech, right? And she's doing jokes about Joe Biden. And Joe Biden is old. Okay, fair enough. Everyone knows that. That's not parallel thinking. That's just
That's a
we
thing.
know that. We know that. Old, senile.
Common premise.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, common
Okay.
premise.
Okay. Comparing Joe Biden to an old dog. Okay. Parallel thinking still.
Yeah.
your reaction to when the old dog walks in the room, and then the follow-up. I was sitting next to Jake, and I'm like, yo, this is Shane Gillis.
Yeah.
This is literally a Shane Gillis bit off his new, because Shane Gillis has that joke off of his latest special where he talks about Joe Biden being like an old dog that walks in your friend's old dog that walks in a room. He's like, oh, there he is. Oh, look at that guy. He does a lot better than I do, obviously, but like he has a joke about that. It's really good. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching this person on stage do basically the same stuff. It's like, hey, yeah, you can cheat off my test, but make it look a little different.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, I'm texting Jake. I'm like, dude, this is fucking Shane Gillis. And he goes, yeah, bro, I know.
That's crazy.
I'm like, all right.
Yeah. I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you. Last time I was here, someone verbatim took a Norm Macdonald joke.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, like Norm to me is like the greatest comedian of all time.
Fair enough.
So like I know all his material, but there's no way it was parallel thinking. Yeah, there's a few jokes like that where like there's no way you came up with this too.
Right.
You know? So it was interesting. That was the only time I think I've ever seen in a show someone steal a joke. I had open mic comedy. I've seen it a few times. One time, it was like the first open mic I ever went to. And I was like, it actually kind of encouraged me to do comedy because I was like, oh, you guys are all really bad at this.
Open mic. Rogan says this a ton, and I agree with him. Bad open mic comedy encourages people to start comedy that are good at it.
Yeah. So anyway, three guys in a row, like not through the night, but in a row, did the same exact closing joke, like verbatim. And it was like, did you think we forgot about the first guy who did that?
Who are they stealing it from?
I think it was one of their jokes, clearly. I don't know. I couldn't tell you who wrote the joke. But the joke was basically like, it wasn't even that good a joke. It was like, I feel like I'm at church right now because you guys are all pedophiles or something. That was...
What?
It was not a good joke.
Why would you ever say that at a show?
It was just weird. It was like a weird moment and it was awkward. Yeah, three comics just like right in a row. And that was an open mic. The show was like the Norm Macdonald... show was the Norm Macdonald. He stole that, which that was crazy because any comic knows like Norm Macdonald. That's like, yeah. Anyway, so that was a weird moment, but hey, what are you gonna do? It's like that's. I think I don't know. It was a interesting experience.
One of the best things I've ever heard about like joke theory was from Whitney Cummings. It was during the Comedy Store documentary. And they were talking about the Mencia stuff.
Yeah.
And she goes, the advice that I got when he was still coming around the Comedy Store and a bunch of spots where we were all working out at, it was, you need to write your material so specific to you that nobody can steal it.
Oh, yeah.
And I've kind of thought about that when I'm writing, like, okay, especially with like the topical stuff or with the like political things. That's what we were talking about a little bit earlier about why I don't like shit on Trump a whole ton is because it's hard to do that and make it unique to you.
Yeah.
Whereas like we've never dealt with like when I was making fun of like I had a joke about Joe Biden at the debate where and I was trying to figure out how to write it in the scenario of the debate and like because my whole thing was like Joe Biden is old, but how do I make that unique? And then I was like, oh. Well, I remember watching the debate and they had these two monitors that was streaming the debate, like the live feed. And at the bottom right, it said live in big red letters. I was like, well, what if Joe Biden's looking at that as a goal? Like just to live. Just to live through this. And it's in big red letters.
Yeah.
And I felt like, okay, well, I don't think anyone's talked about that yet. So that could be interesting. But how can we make this so specific to either myself or so specific to the event and so specific to the topic that's happening in the event that it's not stealable. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, like, I'm just not even there yet. I'm just like, if you steal my material, I mean, I'm known enough in Denver that like people will call that, I think.
Yeah.
Just be like, even if they don't like me, they'd be like,
you stole that Jew's material. And that's a callback, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, they would have been like, they would just be like, yeah, that's so-and-so's material. But, I've never worried about it. I think like comics tend to take care of their own pretty well.
Until they don't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I haven't seen that too much. But yeah, I mean, it's it's an interesting game for sure. Like, yeah, it's so weird too. Like, I don't know if you have this because do you still go to church?
Every so often.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't go to church anymore, but it's like my dad was a pastor. Everyone I knew for the first, 20 odd years of my life went to church. So it's really weird now when I'm like posting like, hey, come to this show. And then like those people are reaching out like, I can't wait to see your comedy. And then I'm like, hey man, I'm so excited to see you. So excited for you to come. You're not going to like it.
I have a bit. It's funny. I have a bit about. I'm still working on it, but I'll say this: we got to wrap up.
Yeah.
So we can go do stand up tonight. But I have a joke about lock-ins at churches.
Damn.
And I'll do it tonight. You know what? Have you heard that?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll try that. It either does really well or it just sinks. Or it just sinks.
Hey, that's fair.
And it's about. I don't want to.
I'll see it tonight.
You'll see it tonight.
All right, dude.
Well, I have a joke about lock-ins, and it usually does well, and sometimes it dies. But when I had a really good show and I was filming it, and it did well, and I was like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm going to put this clip on my Instagram. Like, it's going to do well. And I was like, not only am I going to clip it, I'm going to send it to my old church friends. And I sent it to a few of them, and they were like, dude, you're spot on. I was like, yes.
Nailed it.
Yes. It's like you liked it and you recognize how fucked up of a scenario that is.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
That's all you want.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun,
Dude,
man.
this has been fun.
I know you're going to Austin, but whenever you're back in Albuquerque, let's do this again. Where can everyone find you on Instagram, if you're on YouTube, anything like that?
Just Instagram, Canada.Josh505. Represent. That's where I'm from, brother. Let's do it.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's me.
Sweet.
I have 100 followers, so I'm hoping this podcast at least doubles.
You're gonna get the improvised intelligence bump. I'm manifesting that this year. That my podcast will give people a bump.
There we go.
But listen, seriously, this has been a lot of fun, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming and doing this. Thank you everyone for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. Sick. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you like what you've seen here, please share it with as many people as possible. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. It really does help out the podcast. And if you're feeling extra generous, feel free to subscribe to our Patreon, which I have coming soon.